count, and the count has been proceeding. Some states take longer than others. That's perfectly normal. And so we just need to take a patience pill and let the counts get completed.
All right. Well, Madam Secretary, thank you so much for being with us. Good to talk to you.
Good to see you.
She had to wait a few days for a race of her own, her governor's race. Remember that, Chuck, in Arizona?
She did. And by the way, as you were talking, the Trump campaign put out an email calling on Fox News and the Associated Press to rescind their Arizona projection. And it says ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, Decision Desk Headquarters, Reuters, and the New York Times have all declined to call this race. And they are calling on them to do that. So
I think it's important that it be understood that race calls by networks are informative.
None of them
they
are
have
official.
No official capacity.
None of
we
them
have
are.
no influence over the vote. And
look, we certainly are proud of our abilities to count votes and do the math for folks, but we're not an official entity either, and we're not going to pretend that we are. We're just trying to be transparent because you don't want government doing the count. It is good that the media, the whole point of a nice free democracy is that we're a check. We're a check to make sure that there isn't government control. We know that in other countries that pretend they're democracies, they decide what the vote totals are. And this is what is part of our system.
And none of these decisions are final until weeks from now anyway, when secretaries of state calibrate and make them official.
Well, we're keeping a close eye on the vote count in Georgia tonight. Blaine Alexander joins us from Atlanta. I think Chuck is talking about a smattering of votes coming in. Do we know where they're coming in from and how quickly they're tabulating them?
Well, that's the big question, Lester. You know, we've got about 16,000 votes that are still outstanding. The biggest county that we're watching right now, though, is Clayton County. They've still got several thousand votes that are outstanding. That's according to the latest number from the Secretary of State's office. And that is a county from the Democrats that I've talked to tonight here in the state of Georgia that has them feeling optimistic. It's this county in metro Atlanta, a little bit to the south of Atlanta, but it's a heavily Democratic county. So, you know, that's something that we're watching. But I have a feeling, you've heard Chuck talk about this a lot, I have a feeling that in the hours to come, and certainly into tomorrow, one of the big things that we're going to be watching are those overseas and military ballots, about 8,900 that could possibly come in. That doesn't mean that they all will, but that's how many are out there. And we know that, one, certainly that could affect the number. In fact, I talked with the mayor of Savannah, Georgia tonight, down in Chatham County. That's the county that delivered a large number of votes for Joe Biden. Those 400 votes could make a difference. So we're going to be watching that closely. And Lester, the other thing that it will really impact is the timing of this, when all of this will be completed. Because again, you know, this is something that as long as those ballots are postmarked by Tuesday, they have until the end of the day tomorrow to actually get in and be counted. So that means that it could conceivably take the count into the weekend. When asked about that, the Secretary of State official certainly did not push back on that and didn't rule it out. So those two things that we're going to be watching. The other thing is that with this razor-thin margin, we are almost certainly in recount territory. The Secretary of State official talked about that today as well, that even though we're watching these votes come in, even though we're waiting for them to come in, they're already bracing and kind of gearing up and essentially ready for a possible recount once the time comes.
Yeah, Blaine, thanks. You look at that map, and it seems like a trite term. Every vote counts. You know, if you voted in the state of Georgia and you look at that number, you can see your vote.
Yeah,
by the way, she brought up Clayton County. This is a county that Joe Biden's carrying with just under 85%. Our numbers here indicate 4,300 ballots on there. So you do 85% of that, and in and of itself, it could erase the 1,700 vote lead. Let's wait till they're all counted. But wow, I'm trying. Well, hey, Georgia, welcome to Georgia. Welcome to that club, because this could be the closest of any state, I think, since Florida's 537.
Well, it's funny because I was thinking, I'm old enough to remember 2016 when Michigan had the narrowest margin, and it was 10,000, which just seems like a huge amount of votes in
we
retrospect.
may have 3 states under 10,000.
Yes, okay.
That's so 2016.
Yes, it is. Let's get our former Democratic Missouri Senator Claire McCaskill in this conversation, as well as conservative columnist and editor of National Review, Rich Lowry. They're both NBC News political contributors. All right, how you feeling tonight? Claire McCaskill, you get to go first. The race is tightening up in Pennsylvania, in Georgia, not going your direction in Arizona. How are you feeling?
Well, I got to be honest. I feel great about the people speaking and the fact that it appears they've spoken that they want Joe Biden as president. I feel terrible. I'm depressed and sad and angry that our country has a president that doesn't respect the essence of a democracy. He's filed lots of lawsuits. They haven't won any of them. The only lawsuit they've won, literally the only, as Andrea talked about earlier, the only lawsuit they've won said the observers got to be 6 feet away instead of 10 feet away. The notion that he would tear up this election like that is really depressing to me. Now, the good news I think is cool. You guys just talked about Clayton County in Georgia. That is John Lewis territory. He represented Clayton County. So there would be some beautiful symmetry if Clayton County put Joe Biden over in Georgia. That would make John Lewis very happy.
Rich, how are you feeling about where things stand right now?
Well, it's pretty much where everyone's thought it was and where the Trump people have thought it is, which is they have a shot in Arizona. Georgia is a complete coin flip, and they got to pray over Pennsylvania, which is really sliding the wrong way and is not the whole ball game because Biden has passed without it, but Trump doesn't. He needs Pennsylvania, and it's eroding for him. Is
it a risk to suggest that Donald Trump is ready to move past this thing, or that he could pull this out somehow?
No, he's not moving past this thing probably ever. And this is the problem with what he said tonight, right? I like his policies. I've defended him from a lot of unfair criticisms. But the core problem with Donald Trump is that he's never put the imperatives of the institution of the presidency over and above his selfish interest. And it's just his character and his temperament just never to admit defeat or that he's been defeated fairly. So he's never going to stop saying this. And my sense is a lot of Republicans are troubled by it, maybe even appalled by it. But their calculation at the moment is there's no percentage in going out now and denouncing Trump for this when he's still alive. And they figure they can build some credibility with the president himself, maybe his supporters, if they wait, and if and when the time comes when the president has actually lost, then go to him and say, hey, tone it down, or hey, stop this. And just more broadly, Lester, one lesson of this election is President Trump's not going away. This was not a landslide defeat. This was not a total repudiation. And even if he loses, he's still going to have a lot of traction in the Republican Party. I think it'll be comparable to Sarah Palin when she lost in the vice presidential race in 2008 with John McCain at the top of the ticket. For 2 years straight, media was still obsessed with everything she said, and hers was the most important endorsement in the Republican Party. I expect that to be true with Trump for a while, even if he loses.
I can't believe I'm going to say this, but we've all been up for 3 days. It reminds me in Star Wars, Rich, when Obi-Wan Kenobi passes away and only becomes stronger.
I didn't see that coming.
This
Wow.
is my territory.
I
love this.
I know even Lowry didn't see that one coming.
So I take your point, Rich, and I turn it into a Star Wars reference. But let me say to you, Claire, though, because I've been thinking a lot about this. This wasn't a total rebuke of Donald Trump. First of all, we don't know if he's going to win. He still does have a chance of winning this presidency. So let's just table that for the moment and let's let these votes be counted. But the Republicans gained seats in the House. They are holding steady in the Senate at the moment. You've got a huge number of Americans who voted for him and who like him. And if you're Joe Biden right now, what's your strategy going forward? Let's say he does win. Are you going to reach out to them? Everyone likes to criticize the president saying he never expanded beyond his base. Do you think Joe Biden will reach out and try to expand beyond his base?
You can already hear the echoes of Joe Biden and how he's going to lead, because he keeps saying over and over again, I want to be president for everybody in America, not just those who voted for me. I think he will absolutely make every effort to reach out and talk about economic policies that will help everybody in America, everyone who works in America. And besides standing for core principles of the Democratic Party on a number of different fronts, I think he's going to really try to unite. And that's not something we've had for the last 4 years. And I think the country is craving it.
Do you think the left of the party will let him do that?
I think as long as he is true to the principles of our party in terms of trying to move the needle on the issues that we care about most, climate, economic opportunity, economic equality, in terms of making sure that we're rewarding work and not just people who have enough money to invest.
All right, got to leave it there for the moment. Claire and Rich, thank you so much. Young people, are they looking up Star Wars? Everybody knows Star Wars.
Oh, what do you mean? Tomorrow's a Mandalorian night.
Okay.
Please.
Yes, it is.
The Star Wars franchise cuts across all age groups.
All okay, good. I'm so glad. We've got more to come. Decision 2020 special coverage continues. Don't go anywhere.
Watch what they do, not what they say.
President Trump and Joe Biden hit the trail. At the center of this campaign, coronavirus.
The story.
The battleground blitz as we enter the final stretch of the 2020 race.
From every angle.
If you were sitting here talking to Joe Biden and President Trump, what would you want to tell them right now?
On the ground.
The wind fanning these flames are expected to last another 24 hours.
And in depth.
We now have 2 vaccine trials on hold. Should people be concerned?
NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
All right. Well, presidential historian Jon Meacham joins us now, an NBC News contributor. Always good to have you along. We're impatient folks because we're used to, in a society, we're used to things happening right now. Yep. And kind of remind us that we knew this was going to take a while, but maybe it just didn't sink in.
It absolutely. In 1801, it took until February. So I don't think we're quite in that zone. So I wouldn't hit the panic button quite yet on that. I'm cautiously optimistic about American democracy tonight. I think that the Biden national number is significant. And I think we have to some extent, put this in context. We tend to take elections once they're done and think of them as so decisive, so clear. The results were there was never any doubt. But in 1948, 1960, 1968, 1976, 1980, 1992, 1996, 2000, 2004, and 2016. We had presidents who got about the popular percentage that Joe Biden is polling right now. So that's Truman, Kennedy, Nixon, Carter, Reagan, Clinton, Bush, and Trump. And we're a ferociously divided country. It's sulfurous right now. We have a president who has proven that those of us who argued that decency and democracy were on the ballot this year, that we were right. But the people are speaking. So let's count the votes, let's obey the law, and let's remember that, disagreement's the oxygen of democracy as long as we respect fact itself.
I always find at times like this, it's good to have perspective because I think a lot of folks feel really anxious in their hearts. Some are worried about the outcome of the election, but some are just worried about the country and how divided it does seem and how personal it seems and how there's so much vitriol. But we have been through hard times before. We fought a civil war, after all. If you could just leave us with a final thought on the resilience of America and maybe call us to our better angels as we close tonight.
Well, I argue that the soul of the country is an arena of contention, like all of us individually, where we do battle between what Lincoln called our better angels and our worst instincts. And I don't know about you all, but if my better angels win out 51% of the time, that's a heck of a good day. And I don't have that many of those. And so, we are strong. And we're fairly young, too. We're watching the numbers come out of John Lewis's old 5th Congressional District of Georgia. And remember, 55 years ago, John Lewis walked into a line of state troopers willing to die for the right that so many of us have exercised this week.
Well, John, I always appreciate your words.
That vote is precious. That experiment is precious.
Thank you for that. We'll continue to watch the count as they come in, and of course, we'll come back on the air as events warrant. I'll see you tomorrow in Nightly News.
And I'll see you bright and early, maybe with some new voting results. For all of us here at NBC News, have a good evening. We'll see you tomorrow morning. We're glad to have you with us.
This fall, we're right there with you. Whether you're back to school.
What do you guys think? We're excited?
Or back to work. We're keeping you safe.
I love being back.
Every morning on Today.
Police murder of unarmed black men has been an American way of death across centuries. After seeing the most comprehensive police reform bill ever introduced in Congress, I've begun to wonder if now is the time. If now is the time the protesters finally win.
The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell, weeknights at 10 on MSNBC.
Watching NBC News Now. We've got some breaking news.
Are people there concerned about what impact this could have on the election?
It's news made for your streaming world.
Introducing the MSNBC Daily, featuring written perspectives by experts you know and trust for a better understanding of the stories that matter most. Check out the MSNBC Daily today at msnbc.com.
Watch what they do, not what they say.
President Trump and Joe Biden hit the trail. At the center of this campaign, coronavirus.
The story.
The battleground blitz as we enter the final stretch of the 2020 race.
From every angle.
If you were sitting here talking to Joe Biden and President Trump, what would you want to tell them right now?
On the ground.
The wind fanning these flames are expected to last another 24 hours.
And in depth.
We now have 2 vaccine trials on hold. Should people be concerned?
NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening from NBC News Decision 2020 election headquarters in New York. Welcome to night 3 of our election night coverage. That doesn't make any sense. Anyway, now we're expecting new numbers out of Arizona as vote counting continues in several battleground states tonight.
Stop me if you've heard that one before. This is an election like no other. So many mail-in votes. It's taking days to count them. And here's where it stands tonight. On the road to 270 electoral votes, Joe Biden has 253. Donald Trump has 240. 14. And all eyes tonight, once again, on Pennsylvania, Arizona, and Georgia in particular. They are three extremely tight races. The margins have been narrowing all day in both directions, actually. Pennsylvania alone, with 20 electoral votes, has the potential to put Joe Biden over the top. And he's got momentum on his side there. But in Arizona, it's a different story.
I don't know. If you're like me, I found myself at moments just kind of staring at the numbers as they click and change. Our team is in place. Chuck Todd, Andrea Mitchell, and Casey Hunt. Chuck, break it down. What are we going to see? What are we watching for tonight?
Well, we're going to see what we're going to get in. I mean, what we're watching for is what we've been watching the last 3 nights. And by the way, in fairness, we warned people months ago that election night could become election week. And lo and behold, we didn't mean to be so accurate. Here we are. But let's start with Pennsylvania. When we last left you last night, I believe the president had a vote lead of about 165,000. I would say it's been coming in at a steady clip. I wouldn't call it a fast clip. I would say steady clip. We've gotten some vote out of Allegheny County, which is Pittsburgh in the west. We've gotten some vote in Philadelphia. And it's basically former Vice President Biden has cut the lead by 100,000. Let me show you what we think's available. Out there. We still think he could net another 50,000 votes out of Philadelphia County when all is said and done. There's extraneous there in Delaware County. There may be a few votes left in Chester County, which now more and more people who watch us know where Casey's from. And we've got 2 Philadelphians here with Andrea and Casey. Montgomery County, this could be, a few straggling ballots. And that's another thing I got to remind you of at this point. We're getting to the point where pieces of ballots could be coming in from a whole lot of areas. The biggest chunk we expect to be from the Philadelphia area, which is, again, why Democrats are so optimistic about what they think is coming from Pennsylvania, and Republicans are so nervous. So, will we get that vote tonight, or will we get that in the morning? I think Andrea's had some reporting that indicates it may be in the morning that we get some of this vote. Let's go to another place here, Georgia, which has been, look at the margin right now, less than 2,500 votes. This has been steady, all same thing. The votes have been coming in at a steady clip. And Joe Biden's been winning approximately 65 to 70% of what's been counted. It's all been vote by mail. A lot of it has been in the Atlanta area, but we think we've gotten most out of DeKalb. There still might be some in Fulton. There still might be some in Cobb. These are all Biden areas. Probably done there in Douglas. When we do 99 these days, we don't put anything at 100, but our 99 is the assumption that we're at the tail end there. There was some vote out of Savannah earlier today that also brought the lead down. So we are down to maybe 15,000 ballots left. So if he wins 2-1, I mean, look, this is a race that's going to be a tie, plus or minus a couple thousand votes.
Let's check out Arizona, because I think our producer just said we just got some new votes in.
Well, then let's take a look. It was the next state I was going to go to anyway.
In Maricopa County.
Here we are. Well, as you can see, Joe Biden's lead is down to 46,000. This was something that has been sitting at 68,000 all day. It's what we left last night with. And last night, just to remind people, the vote that got counted last night, we had said that President Trump needs to win 57 to 58% of all remaining ballots. Last night, in the first vote that were counted last night that got dropped into the count, he did get 57.5%. So obviously here, more has come in. You can see in Maricopa, we don't know for sure how much is left. And we don't know when exactly all of it's going to come in. It could be a little bit longer. But I can tell you this. All of our projections seem to think this is going to be razor tight. In fact, maybe Georgia razor tight. So don't go anywhere on Arizona. This one, even as we get more vote in. Now, look, if we get more vote in and it's more of a 51-49 in the president's direction, then he may be that he can't, he'll come up short. But we are going to wait to see more vote because it has been coming in at a clip that could allow the president to overtake Biden in that vote count. And then, of course, there's one more state that we're waiting on in Nevada. And this was something we thought we'd get today. And now it looks like we will get tomorrow or Saturday. The Clark County registrar said that there is more vote that they will complete by Saturday, but we should see more tomorrow. We did get a little bit today. When we left you last night, Joe Biden had a lead of just under 8,000. when a very small chunk of vote, and I say very small, about 12 to 13,000 ballots came in, he won those 2-1. They all came from Clark County, and it expanded his lead to just about 11,000, as you say, 438. So he won those 2-1. It was too small of a sample to make us think this is going to extrapolate out. When we see a little bit more, we'll see what it tells us. John Ralston, who's an expert on Nevada politics, doesn't think there is enough Republican vote to overtake it. But you know what? We want to count the ballots.
Okay, and now you know, in a nutshell, why we're still on the air here tonight. When we're waiting for
if that's
votes.
a nutshell, Savannah, that's a big nutshell. Yeah, it's hard to find the walls of it.
Yes, but we'll continue to follow it. Gadi Schwartz, our correspondent in Phoenix, is watching the Arizona vote count for us. He was watching it come in live, and we just got another batch of vote. I won't ask you to do math, Gadi, but what are you hearing from folks about on both sides about what they feel is going to happen here in Arizona?
Yeah, so that batch came from that building right over there. We've got this sizable crowd right here. The people in this crowd are here supporting the president. They say they want to make sure all their votes are counted, and they are confident that the president will carry Arizona. I want to show you, it's a little bit more of a calm scene so far than what we saw yesterday. I'm going to show you why. So we've got this crowd over here, and we've got some people speaking. I'm just going to work my way through here. Sorry, howdy. Sorry. So we've got some gentlemen that just came in a little while ago with some long guns. Other than that, before that, it was mostly handguns. Here in Arizona, it's an open carry state, so that's not necessarily out of the ordinary, but most people had sidearms. Now we're starting to see long guns into the night, but again, that is a constitutional right, and here in Arizona, it's not necessarily out of the ordinary, so it might be a little bit jarring for people to see at home, but there are people with firearms here in this crowd. They say they are here because they want to peacefully protest, and they say that is part of that peaceful protest. Now, this is what I wanted to show you here. These are barriers that they've put up to try to give the Maricopa County Election Center a little bit of a berth. Yesterday, you saw the crowd. They were right up against the wall over there, and you could hear them chanting through the window. They were a lot more aggressive yesterday. It might have been a different group because today the vibe has been more subdued. We've heard some speakers actually say they don't want to hear conspiracies. They don't want to hear talk of QAnon. They want to make sure that this is focused on the ballot. We actually had somebody come out just a little while ago, a Republican, and try to explain to them that while the Sharpie rumors that were flying around right now were very inconvenient, and they did have some questions about them, they did seem to be within the margin and within something that is legitimately seen by Maricopa County as an effective means of marking your ballot. So that's one of the things that we've seen so far in this crowd. But again, it's 7 o'clock right now, still relatively early here in Arizona. And again, those ballots just came out. They do show that President Trump is closing that gap between Joe Biden, who is in the lead. It's gone from 69,000 votes to a gap of about 40,000 votes, as you guys were just talking about. And we'll see if we can get possibly another batch a little bit later tonight.
Oh, I was just about to ask you real quick if we were going to get more tonight, if you're expecting that. And do you know just generally how many ballots are left in Arizona to be counted?
Rough math, we're talking about something like 200,000 here at Maricopa County. When it comes to Arizona as a whole, we have seen some returns come in from some of the smaller counties, but we're looking at probably 300,000, 350,000 that still have to come in. And unfortunately, from the SOS, from the Secretary of State here, she has said that it is possible that we could see this go into this weekend. Guys?
All right, we've come to expect a long wait.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to Pennsylvania now. Chris Jansing is in Harrisburg. Chris, tell us about the count there. What are you seeing?
Hey, Lester, I just was texting with a local elected. I've been keeping in touch with electeds throughout today to see what they're hearing. And he tells me that they are expecting another drop of some, and I don't know, he didn't have any description of how many that means, but some votes soon out of Philadelphia. But he did say that they are expecting to continue to count into the night. And in fact, that they've been doing math, and what they believe is that at the rate the count is going and the rate that we see the pace of votes going to Joe Biden. They believe that he will surpass President Trump sometime between 4 or 5 a.m. And one of the things that we talked about was the Secretary of State, who kind of rolled back her suggestion that there might be a decision tonight. There had been a delay because of the lawsuit that was filed, and they had to put a pause on the counting today. One of the things that happens if they continue to count tonight and they get the bulk of this done tonight, then any delays that might be caused by a lawsuit become moot. So again, looking for some new votes to come out sometime soon, and the count to continue through the evening, Lester.
All right, Chris Jansing there for us. Thank you.
Well, let's talk about the candidates. We heard two very different messages from them today. Both came before the cameras. Joe Biden expressed confidence that ultimately he will win the race. He urged patience. The president repeated false claims of fraud.
Senator and I, we continue to feel very good about where things stand. We have no doubt that when the count is finished, Senator Harris and I will be declared the winners.
If you count the legal votes, I easily win. If you count the illegal votes, they can try to steal the election from us.
Well, we're duty-bound to say there is no evidence that there are illegal votes being counted, but votes are continuing to be counted as expected. Let's go to our correspondents. Hallie Jackson's at the White House, Jeff Bennett at Biden headquarters in Wilmington, Delaware. Hallie, let's start with you, the president's statement and what the state of mind is inside the Trump campaign tonight.
Sure. So let's take those two pieces, Savannah, starting with the president's statement, because remember, this is the first time now we have seen him on camera delivering remarks since that very late night, early morning hours speech that he gave in the East Room at the White House on election night. The president, rather than stepping back from the fraudulent claims, the false claims that he made, he is leaning into this, again, prematurely declaring that he believes he's won this race, even though there are still, of course, ballots yet to be counted. He is talking, as you mentioned, about the idea of fraud, he calls it, in the election system. And to be crystal clear here, there is no evidence of widespread fraud. There are no reports of it. There is no systemic issue with this election. It is proceeding exactly as it was intended to proceed and exactly as we thought it would proceed, with ballots being counted in these key states legitimately. Yes, it's taking a while, but that is because, of course, a lot of these ballots were mailed in largely because of the pandemic. So there is, I've been talking with sources tonight, and I can tell you that there is, to a degree, some level of discomfort with the way that the president's messaging is on this issue, specifically as it relates to what we've heard from him in just the last couple of hours. As for the path, you know, here, campaign officials, people in and around the campaign, really believe it comes down to Pennsylvania and Arizona, but that is a very narrow path. In order for this to work for the president, basically, he's got to hang on to that lead that Joe Biden is chipping away at in Pennsylvania, and he's got to overtake the lead that Biden has in Arizona. That is the way that the campaign believes, that the best way that he would have this narrow path to victory. Listen, I think I can sum it up in the words of somebody else that I talked to today. Confident? No. Is it possible? Yes. Is one of our sources is telling our team here. Could the president get lucky? Absolutely. There is still that possibility, but it is looking like an ever narrowing path for President Trump here. So I would say that the overall sense is really, I think, defiance from the president as he's pushing these legal fights here. And by the way, that strategy isn't working everywhere. We saw judges dismiss two of those lawsuits in Georgia and Michigan today because there's just not evidence to back up the idea that anybody's breaking the law.
Hey, Hallie, are you hearing anything about any internal discussions or any thought that maybe the president shouldn't come out, or maybe he should not talk about some of these conspiracies?
Yes, absolutely, Lester. And again, this all is sort of happening tonight, so we're still working on reporting this out. But I can tell you that I spoke with one sort of source familiar with the president's thinking here who had some concerns about this. Now, that said, I think there's also some concern. I think people in and around the president's circle often feel aggrieved by media narratives, and I think that there is some of that is playing into this as well. But I do think that, you are seeing, even from Republicans outside the president's circle, concern that is growing with the way that he's handling this. On the flip side, what's interesting, Lester, is the president's family. You're seeing, for example, his son calling on other Republicans to basically get on board and get behind the president because, for example, Donald Trump Jr. believes that's going to play a part in the 2024 election. Yeah,
that was one of the conversations we had here earlier, about other Republicans not necessarily falling in line with these theories.
Well, Marco Rubio, for instance, has tweeted, if a candidate believes a state is violating election laws, they have a right to challenge it in court and produce evidence in support of their claims. And also taking days to count legally cast votes is not fraud directly at the president.
Marco Rubio, a Florida senator who is not one to cross swords with the president very often, so it's notable. We also heard from Pennsylvania's Republican senator essentially saying, let the votes be counted, Casey.
And that's the message it seems like we're getting right now from most elected Republicans, even as the president's family seems to be suggesting that those who want to be the future of the Republican Party aren't being loyal enough in this moment. We are hearing an overall message that is much more focused on count the votes, use the process, have faith in the process. And even saying, if you can go to the court and the court says you've got standing, okay, that's part of our system. But so far, they are really reinforcing the system itself. And that's really what's separating them potentially from the president.
Well, there's a tension, isn't there, within the Republican Party over this? Because in point of fact, Republicans down the ballot did very well on Tuesday night. So for the president to say, hey, there's something funky going on with this election, undermines the very real gains that Republicans had. So do you sense that some Republicans are saying, hey, wait a minute, we don't know if we're into this strategy of casting aspersions on the entire process that went on Tuesday?
Because that elected some House members. They got seats back. They defeated some of the incumbent Democrats who had just been elected in 2018. It's the same ballot. They're all on the same ballot. If the ballot is fraudulent, then their elections are also in dispute.
And, I had a lot of conversations with Republicans over many weeks heading into the election about, okay, there are so many instances where they didn't stand up to President Trump on things where a lot of their critics said, hey, you should. And I said to them, we know how President Trump's going to handle this. He told us before the election that he was going to do exactly what he did tonight, that he was going to come out and question the results of the election. And almost to a person, they told me in private conversations, we are not ready to give the American experiment over to Donald Trump. This is a line too far. They said, okay, he goes to the courts end up declaring if he's got to win this election in the courts, and the courts say yes, we'll go with that. But if he loses in court, if he loses fair and square, we're going to stand up and say to the American people, this is fair and square. So they are facing, I think, a test they didn't want to have to face. But so far, they are meeting it in the way I was told that they would.
It's a bit awkward, too, because at the same time, some of these folks that got reelected in a year that it looks like Joe Biden may get elected president do have the president to thank for getting the Trump base out. Look, we know there's two distinct Republican set of voters. There's those that are animated by the president's on the ballot. And we saw that in 2018 when he wasn't on the ballot, and being on the ballot did matter. In a lot of these districts that Democrats won in 2018 that we call these Trump districts, many of them went right back. But at the same time, we do see some evidence. We talked about there's not a lot of split ticket voting. There was some key split ticket voting. You can't tell me that Republicans, that the voters that voted for Joe Biden in New Hampshire, for instance, some of them voted for Joe Biden and a Republican Senate and House candidate so that New Hampshire's legislature could go Republican. So it goes to this point that the president really is sort of, and it's making it very awkward for these elected Republicans who, yes, they owe the president's supporters the base. And at the same time, they know that some Biden voters put him in office, too.
We need to take a break here. We're going to talk with a man who knows something about presidential election cliffhangers. Our exclusive interview with former Vice President and presidential candidate Al Gore when our special Decision 2020 coverage continues.
Good morning. Welcome to Today. We're glad to have you with us.
This fall, we're right there with you, whether you're back to school.
What do you guys think? We're excited?
Or back to work. We're keeping you safe.
I love being back.
Every morning on Today.
Police murder of unarmed black men has been an American way of death across centuries. After seeing the most comprehensive police reform bill ever introduced in Congress, I've begun to wonder if now is the time. If now is the time the protesters finally win.
The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell, weeknights at 10 on MSNBC.
NBC News Now. We've got some breaking news.
Are people there concerned about what impact this could have on the election?
It's news made for your streaming world.
Introducing the MSNBC Daily, featuring written perspectives by experts you know and trust for a better understanding of the stories that matter most. Check out the MSNBC Daily today at msnbc.com.
Watch what they do, not what they say.
President Trump and Joe Biden hit the trail. At the center of this campaign, coronavirus.
The story.
The battleground blitz as we enter the final stretch of the 2020 race.
From every angle.
If you were sitting here talking to Joe Biden and President Trump, what would you want to tell them right now?
On the ground.
The winds fanning these flames are expected to last another 24 hours.
And in depth.
We now have 2 vaccine trials on hold. Should people be concerned?
NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Welcome back to our Decision 2020 coverage. I'm Lester Holt, along with Savannah Guthrie. Joining us now is the Attorney General of Nevada, Aaron Ford. Mr. Attorney General, thank you for joining us again. Nice to see you.
Hi, Lester. Hi, Savannah. Great to be back.
Hello.
Tell us about this lawsuit from the Trump campaign and your response.
Well, this lawsuit that they announced that they were going to file this morning at 8:30 is, to this point, non-existent. They've been talking about it all day, but I haven't seen anything filed or served on us. That said, Trump did issue a letter today saying that they sent a list to Attorney General Barr of people who they say, and I quote, appear to have improperly cast mail ballots in the election, unquote. Appear to have, though? I mean, Trump's hints and hunches are neither evidence nor proof. Rather, they're just a perfect example of speculation, which is the same basis on which the courts have thrown out civil lawsuits they filed in the state here before. So I don't give any credence to that either.
And their claim is that there are thousands of illegitimate votes. Have they presented any evidence?
None at all. They've submitted information, they say, to AG Barr, but they've not submitted anything to my office, for example, for consideration.
And just separately, I'm sure having learned of these allegations and that a lawsuit might be forthcoming, you've looked into it yourself. Do you have any evidence of any of the underlying accusations that have been made here?
We don't have any evidence of widespread voter fraud going on. In fact, historically, we've not had much voter fraud, and that comes directly from the lips of our current Secretary of State, Barbara Sagafsky, a Republican, who has run this elections and understands what goes into it. And so, again, I don't give any credence to these contentions. It's just another effort, another example of them trying to undermine the integrity of the election and to see sows of doubt.
All right. Well, Attorney General Ford, thank you for talking to us. It's good to see you.
Yeah, we're still waiting results in Nevada. Let's turn to John Ralston, who is our Nevada guru, a longtime political correspondent there lately for the Nevada Independent. John, we saw a big new batch of votes from Clark County. That's Las Vegas. That's obviously a Democratic stronghold in Nevada. What's your analysis of what came in and perhaps just as importantly, what is still to come?
Those are the questions, Savannah. So what came in, as you mentioned, were 14,000 votes from Clark County. These are mail ballots, and Joe Biden won by about 2-1, picked up about 4,500 votes out of those 14,000, now has an 11,500 lead in Nevada. But that was only a small fraction of the number of mail ballots that are left in Clark County. There are probably about 175,000 ballots left in Clark County and about 20,000 in the rest of the state. But the issue is that this is the Democratic stronghold, as you said, Savannah. The mail balloting here all through the last 3 weeks or so has gone 2-1 or so for Joe Biden. There is no reason to think that the remaining ballots aren't going to have similar percentages as the ones that came the last 3 weeks and the ones that we saw reported today.
And when people look at that map of Nevada and they see that huge red section in the middle, what kind of population are we talking about there?
Well, it's a very small part, a percentage of the population, even though it's by far the biggest landmass, as you noted, Lester. That's usually about 12, 13% of the vote, and it overwhelmingly went for Donald Trump. And one of the reasons that the race is so close is that Trump lost Reno, Washoe County by a little bit and lost Clark County by a lot. And the rural counties came in so overwhelmingly for him that usually offset for the Democrat by the win in Clark County. But Joe Biden, as of yet, now remember, there's all those tens of thousands of mail ballots to be counted. He only won Clark County by about 8%. Hillary Clinton won Clark County by 11%. It was expected that Joe Biden would do at least that well. He hasn't, and that's why the race is so close. But he could increase that margin dramatically. 51,000 new votes are going to be reported tomorrow morning in Clark County.
All right.
John Ralston, thanks.
Tomorrow morning, okay, from your lips to God's ears, as they say. But I mean, I thought we heard that it might also be Saturday.
Could be. But look, I want to just show you, we can show you some of the